All right, so what I want to talk about here today is about effects and working with some basic effects inside of Avid and some more complicated effects if we want to explore some of those as an idea and some things we can look at. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about transition effects. And transition effects happen at a transition, and that would be a cut point on the timeline. So if we have a sequence like this and we have multiple places where there are cut points between different clips or there. I mean, a cut basically is the most basic transition we could ask for. It cuts from one scene to another. So it's basically, going from a clip to another clip in here. And so we have that as an idea. I'm going to right click on this and switch to a single monitor just to make my world a little bit easier. We could go into like a different mode here. We could go into Windows workspaces and go to effects workspace if we really wanted to and have a different kind of layout of how our system is designed. But we're going to stick here in workspace, edit, and just stick in edit mode. But I do want to click on the single monitor, show single monitor. So I'm right clicking on the composer window and going to show a single monitor. And so here, again, at the transition cut point, we can add a transition. And so, for example, just hypothetically, we can use the most convenient tool that we have, which is the quick transition button right here. And so it's this button that looks like a little box that goes from a white box into a black box. It kind of transitions there, and it gives a little icon that kind of shows there. And we can open up the transition. So if you go near the cut point, and you have to make sure that you have the track enabled that you want to put the transition on. So if this is not enabled, it won't do the transition. But here, if we want to do the transition, we can kind of park right here and then hit the quick transitions button, and it opens up this dialog box. And this dialog box is the quick transitions dialog box. It looks kind of like this, and it offers you some basic transitions that you have available, including the dissolve, the film dissolve, the film fade, the fade to color, the fade from color, the dip to color, and the stereoscopic 3D depth transition. I guess if we were doing like a Marvel movie or something, we could do stereoscopic 3D depth transitions. Honestly, I've never used this before, and so I've never worked on a Marvel film. And so I'm not doing that. I'm not making the next Avatar movie anytime soon. But anyway, we're going to go here and we're going to say, let's just cancel this again. So we're going to park here and we're going to hit quick transitions, and we'll go right here and we'll just choose the dissolve. And it asks us some questions. Now it asks us first what tracks we want to put the dissolve on. It will do audio transitions, audio crossfades if the audio tracks are enabled. You can enable them here after the fact and kind of have them enabled, or we can just leave them disabled here. But they will be, however they're enabled here by default over on the track selects. So we're going to do add a dissolve. So we're going to do a simple dissolve from this cut to this cut. And just to review, we'll just hit cancel here. I know I'm going back again. Just to review here, we're going to go here and we're going to say, let's play this, and it just cuts from this shot to this shot. And so it does a simple cut right here. And so we're going to go here. We're going to hit quick transitions. You can also hit the backslash key next to the two bracket keys on the right hand side there. There's the backslash key. That is the shortcut for the quick transitions on a standard Avid. And so we're going to add a dissolve, again, add a dissolve, and it offers this question of centered on cut. We're going to talk about this, what's called the position or the alignment, the transition alignment later on. It asks us for duration, 24 frames. Since we are working in a 24 frame per second project, that is a 1 second transition. This will do this by default as a 1 second transition. And then it asks us, do we want to add this or add and render? Well, for now, we're just going to choose add. I will turn off the audio 3 because we don't really need to do a transition. There's nothing really on audio 3, so we're not really worried about it. But here we're going to hit add and add this transition, and it's going to add the transition there. And if you see this, it automatically goes through. We can play this. So and there's my transition. And there's my transition happening there. And so we can do a transition from here to here. So going from this to there, simple basic transition. Was it better than a cut? I don't know. Maybe it shows a change in time or place as dissolves will tend to do. We could do that. We'll do this again here. We'll go here to where it says Fidel right here, and it goes from this clip of Fidel. And we're going to go here and we're going to say backslash key, or again, hit quick transitions. And we're going to add a longer dissolve here. We're going to add a 48 frame dissolve. That's a 2 second dissolve. And we're going to hit add. And so when we add this, it comes in automatically.
Be interested in.
Heat went on.
Great transition there, like so. Now, if we wanted to, at the beginning of this, we could go to the beginning of this, and we could do a fade from color. And so we could go to the beginning of this, and we could say fade from color. Now, by default, the choice of fade from color would be a fade up from black. So we could do a fade from black here and choose a fade from black and fade to color. Now I do want to ask about this question about add versus add and render. Well, when we add this file, you'll notice that it creates this transition, and this transition right here has a little green dot next to it. And that means it is a real-time transition. What does that mean? That means that every single time I play this, the computer's doing a little bit of work. The computer's doing a little bit of work to figure out the transition over 24 frames to be basically figure right here entirely this shot, CCCC shot, going to a little bit more Fidel, and it has to figure out this math, and it figures out this math live in real time. The computer's always calculating this, and so it's doing this effect as real time. And Avid, since this is footage that was transcoded into media that Avid works with really well, it was transcoded into DNX HD media, it has no problem doing real-time effects like this, and it's really easy and really convenient, and it won't lag or it won't, drop frames or any problems here. It'll just play back perfectly fine, which is great.
So the minority male initiative.
So that's there, and you can say, hey, I can just, in the 21st century with these modern computers with lots of RAM and great video cards and all this great processing power, I can do most of these transitions real time, which is one of the benefits of actually transcoding the media. If I was working with, GoPro footage or LinkedIn media that came from some weird source or something, maybe it wouldn't play real time. Maybe it would have some issues trying to play back and would stutter or slow down or, have some glitchy errors.
So the minority male.
But this should play back fine. And that is, again, because we've transcoded this media into something like, XDCAM, which Avid works with really well. So XDCAM at 35 megabytes per second, this footage has been transcoded and it works like a charm and it works really, really well. But here, this plays back fine.
So
now, some people will say, you know what, I like this. I like it playing back real time, but I'm working with, 4K footage, I'm working with 8K footage, and I'm really worried about it freezing up, and I'm worried about it, lagging or dropping frames or any of those other problems that may occur. And I instead know what I want my transition to do. So now I want my transition to be rendered. I want to create a file. I want to create a rendered file. We're going to click on this clip here, and we're just going to click on this transition here. And sorry, let me go back to this guy. And we're going to click on, well, we're going to park on this. We're going to park over this thing, and we're going to hit the remove effect button. And in this case, I'm going to choose the remove effect button and remove this effect here. And we're going to add this effect back in again. When we add this effect back in again, we're going to click here and add this effect, and we're going to choose add and render. And what happens is when you add and render, it asks for a target drive to render it to. So it's going to take this 24 frame, 1 second of video, and it's going to render a video clip. A video clip will always play back fine inside of Avid. So as long as your system can support Avid, it should play back fine there. So we're going to add and render. We're going to say add and render, and it's going to render this file here. We're going to not render these audio transitions here. We're going to just render the video and add and render this, and it's going to create this effect. And now you notice that this effect does not have the green dot. There is no green dot. And the reason why it doesn't have the green dot is because it is an actual piece of video. It is a piece of, appreciable video. And we can look at that. We can actually look at that in the drive. If we go here to Finder, and we go to my hard drive and go to Avid Media Files here, in MXF in the folder called 1 here, you will see that there's a file here called main sequence dissolve. There, it was made, if you look in the date or anything, it was made today. So this is the time right now. So we're doing this late at night, but we're doing this. And so I made this transition happen. And so I have this transition here. Now, that would be a rendered effect. If I wanted to know this for sure, I could render this. But say, for example, hypothetically, I didn't. Say I didn't do this. Say I undo, and I'll just get rid of this. And I'll say I just added this effect in here. And I went in here and said, let's just add this effect in here. Boom. So now we have an effect here that's been added. Now, in this case, I also added the audio transitions. I was working quickly. I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so the minority.
So I have this transition doing like this. We're going to undo that, and I'm just going to do this again without the audio. I'm going to deselect the audio because I just want the video to transitions and add this in here. So I've added this effect in here, and we're just going to work with RealTime Effects for now. We're just going to live with RealTime Effects. Now at the beginning of this, I'm going to go here, and we're going to do a fade from color. So we're going to go here at the beginning and quick transition, and we're going to choose not dissolve, but fade from color. I just feel better about this as a fade from color at the beginning of this. So at the beginning of this, we're going to do a fade from color, which is going to fade up here, and we're going to add this in here as well. Boom, and add this transition. So now it's going to fade up from black. There's my little opening of my fade up from black. Simple, straightforward, relatively easy.
So the minority.
Great. At the end of this, I'm going to go to the end of this sequence, assuming this is the end. This is probably not the end. This is only a minute or so in, but we'll just assume for now that this is the end. We're going to hit the backslash key. In this case, we're going to do fade to color. So we're going to dissolve and choose fade to color. So we have that as an idea, and we're going to fade this out at the end of this. And so now at the end of this, it fades out.
NJCU student.
Great, so we faded out of there. We did do an audio transition as well because the audio track selectors were on and there. But now none of this is rendered. None of this is rendered, and it will all play back real time because it has the green dot. And the green dot is usually an indicator that as long as your computer system can run Avid and you are working with Avid-based media or Avid-friendly media, it will play back real time, which is never really a problem. But you're nervous and you say, no, I want to make sure this plays back real time. So now I want to render this. Well, a couple things I can do. I can park on this. I can park on this clip, for example, and I can hit the render button, which is this icon right here. It shows what looks like a little frame with a little arrow or a little play button next to it. This is render effect. And I can click on this and it asks me, hey, do I want to render this? Well, yeah, what drive do I want to render to? So when I say what drive do I want to render this to, I'm asking, well, I'm putting this as a piece of video. This is an actual piece of media that's going to go onto a drive. What drive do I want to put it onto? Well, usually defaults to the largest drive available, but I could put it onto my Macintosh hard drive, which probably isn't a safe bet. I'll probably put it in my external SSD drive and have it there, and I can render this there. The other thing I can do is I can right click and choose render at position. So if I want to just right click, if I feel better about right clicking, I can choose render at position, and I can render position. It will bring up the same dialog box. But that seems like it takes too long because I have 1, 2, 3, 4 effects here, and maybe I throw in another effect. Maybe I go here to Wayne here and I say between this clip, for some reason, I don't know, we want to do a dip to color here. We're going to choose a dip to color here and choose a dip to color. And we're going to add this in here. And so this is going to do what's traditionally in old switcher terms called a kiss black.
High school in Central Jersey.
And
Kiss black up on Wayne here. So we're going to do a dip down, kiss black.
High school in Central Jersey.
And when there's an
Up
opportunity,
on Wayne, come up there like so, and do this transition here. And so now we have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 transitions here, all these different effects here. And I want to go here and I want to mark an endpoint at the very beginning. And I'm going to go to the very, very end. And now I have everything selected. So I have an endpoint, hit the I key, marked an endpoint. I could have hit these guys, hit the out point at the end. So now I've grabbed all this. Now, in this case, context sensitive, when I right click on the timeline, it says render and it says render into out. So it offers me the render into out functions, which means it'll render all these here like so. And it'll say, hey, 9 effects to render. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This will render the audio effects as well. And I will say render all of this. And this will go through the process of rendering. It takes a couple seconds, but usually relatively quickly, especially for stuff like dissolve to transitions. And now this is all rendered. And now I have, again, on my hard drive, I actually have pieces of media that have been rendered. So here's Avid Media Files, MXF in one, puts in the one folder. I have all these pieces of media, main sequence, dissolve, dissolve, main sequence, fade, main sequence, audio transition, main sequence, dissolve, dip to color, etc. All these things in here like so. So I can do these transitions simply enough like so. So let's talk about that as an idea, and let's talk about some controls that we have here, some abilities, some things we can do with the transitions. And one thing I want to talk about is this right here. Right here, what happens here, and when it does a dissolve, we're going to remove this effect. So we're going to park on this, hover over this, and as long as we're hovered over it somewhere, we're going to click on here, and we're going to hit the remove effect button, which is just a nice convenient button that allows us to remove the effect, and the effect is gone like so. I'm going to hit the G key to also remove the in and out points simultaneously. I don't really care about them anymore. I don't want them there. But let's talk about this as an idea. So right now we're going here from CCCC, this clip right here, which is we've relabeled CCCC, to Fidel. And so we're going from this clip here to this clip here, and we're going to do add a transition. And it offers this question of transition alignment. Well, what the heck is a transition position? Well, right now it says the transition is centered on cut. So it's going from clip A, we'll call this clip A. I know this is C, but we'll call this clip A to clip B here. And it's going the transition from clip A to clip B. And the way that this looks here, it says what we did was when we had this, let's go back to standard edit mode. I just want to show you the source footage here. So we're going to restore current to default and say, boom, and say restore current default. And so we're going to go here and look at clip C. So we grab clip C here. If we just park here, we can hit the match frame button, and we can see that this clip, well, this clip of Fidel, it started right here. So it started right here. So since it started right here, we're saying that this clip starts at this point here. But there's footage before this clip. There's actually footage before this clip of me asking the question to Fidel. Initiative conference, what is it going to be? What does it involve? And what the expectation is.
Okay, so
we picked up at so, right? And if we look at clip C here, if we go back here to clip C here and we go to match frame, you'll see there's some footage after this clip. So here was this clip that we're looking at. This was here. It ends here, but then there's a whole bunch of more footage after it. And this is leftover footage. So normally we grab a clip, we say, oh, we have this whole clip. We want this clip from here to here. And then we have this footage beforehand and we have this footage afterwards. And this footage, well, you know, Avid still remembers that footage exists. It's kind of there. We use it when we trim, when we add more on, we take more off. There, we trim this footage on, off. This footage over here is sometimes referred to as what's called a handle. And so this is leftover footage. This is kind of the handle footage. Imagine if you were an old school filmmaker and you were holding up a film strip to the light. You would kind of put your thumbs on either end of where you wanted the film to look into the light, to kind of stare at the film. If you ever saw, Thomas Edison staring, holding up the film there, the leftover parts were the parts here before and after this where he was holding on to the film here. And so this is the handle of the film. And so we can look at the film and we can have the handle. Now, when we go to the transition, it says up here, it says, okay, this is clip A, and clip A goes to here. And then there's all this leftover footage after this film. And it's telling me that I have about 126 frames left over after this. And before Fidel, I have about 35 frames before Fidel. And so I have a little before, a little after, a little extra footage here that I can use before, after this here. And this is the handle. Now, what happens is that Avid uses the handle in order to make the transition because the cut is instantaneous. It goes from one frame to the next frame and it cuts instantaneously. But when it does the transition, it has to kind of overlap. It has to take two different video clips and overlap. So in order to not make the sequence longer or shorter, it has to use that extra handle. And it looks kind of like this. And you can see this it's going to go from A with a little bit of B underneath it. And then it's going to go to B with a little bit of A over top of it. So it's kind of like these interlocking fingers, think of it that way, or these overlapping sheets of paper, basically. It kind of wraps and goes from here to here. And it's saying is, if this is a 24 frame transition, centered on the cut means that it's going to start 12 frames before the cut. So it's going to start to ramp up, and then right here is going to be the midpoint. So we can show this to you here. If we add this right here, it adds this transition. And if we zoom in here and we look right here, it says right here that before this, we can see it starts here, 12 frames before. So this is the last frame here. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's the transition right there. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 24. And so it's doing the transition. It's centering on this cut, which means it's overlapping some of B underneath and some of A over top. Well, the problem with this is that when it does this transition and it creates this transition, we have a bit of a problem. We have some problematic handle. What we get is we pick up the word okay again, because here it comes. Watch this.
Okay, so
well, that wasn't there. We actually went through, if you remember previous lessons, we went through and we made sure that he wasn't saying okay. We trimmed that out so it wasn't there.
So the minority.
He just says, so the minority male initiative. Well, how do we pick up that okay? And even if we do this without audio, even if we go here, we park here and we say, let's do this without audio, we'll still pick up his mouth saying okay. And you'll kind of sort of see it as he plays back through here. So there's a little bit of a lip smack there of the word okay coming through. If we made this transition longer, if we redid this and made this 48 frames, you could really see him saying, again, this would be 24 frames before the cut. You could really see him saying okay. Okay, so there it is. Even though you can't see, you can see his lips move.
So the minority.
And it gets kind of strange. You'll see this sometimes. I see this sometimes in the news. Sometimes in the news when they're doing a transition out of a scene, they'll do an interview with somebody, and the person will finish talking, and then they dissolve out of it, back to the in studio anchor or whatever, and you'll still see the the person's mouth moving like they were continuing to talk. And I always stop and go, I wonder what else he was saying. He was talking about, you know, the fire that happened in downtown Brooklyn or whatever. And all of a sudden he says, oh, and he says something else. And then you don't see him say it, but you still see his lips move because the handle doesn't work. The handle's kind of, you know, problematic. And so here, we have some problem with the handle. So let's undo this and let's see how we can fix this. So the problem that we have here is that when we do this transition, it says, even if we do a 24 frame transition, it says right here that it's using A, and then it goes from A, and it uses some leftover A. So it uses, after this clip, when this clip ends, wherever this clip ends, we can take a look at it again here. We can go here and use the match frame button, and we can see, okay, so it ends. So it's using all of this leftover footage here. And this is fine. The footage after A is fine. But if we look here at Fidel, again, match frame, the footage before Fidel, this is where he says, okay. Okay. So that's trouble. And so we don't like the footage before B. The footage before B, the leftover handle before B, this stuff down here is not our friend. So let's see if we can change the transition alignment. If we change the transition alignment to starting at cut, it's going to use all of A's handle and none of B's handle. It's not going to start the transition. So it's going to start the transition a little bit later, about half a second later, but it's going to start the transition a little bit later, but it's going to cut more into Fidel here, which is going to not use any of Fidel's handle. If we change this to ending at cut, it's going to use all of the leftover after Fidel here, or before Fidel here, and it's going to use all of that okay there. So this is probably not what we want. We probably don't want it to look like this, because then we get all the okay there. So what do we want? In this example, we want starting at cut. We can say starting at cut. So it's going to use all of this leftover handle here, and it's going to transition a little bit later, but we're going to lose the okay.
So the minority male initial.
It's a better transition. This is not something that happens often, but on occasion you run into a problem where you say, you know what, I just don't like the way the leftover footage that's being used to overlap works for me. It doesn't work for me. It gives me some problems. We'll do another sequence here. I'm going to hit Command N, Command Shift N, and we're going to hit sequences, and we're going to say okay, and create a new sequence. And we're going to call this sequence just handle. I'm just going to call this handle, just for an example's sake. We'll go here to B-roll, and we'll just grab a clip here. Let's take another example here of something that works. Let's say, for example, we have this scene, and from here to here we have this. Maybe not in this scene. Let's take something that I know is trouble. Let's take this scene here. So we have a weird zoom in here. We pan by, and then there's a weird zoom in, just a weird kind of awkward zoom in. So we're gonna go right before the weird zoom in. He's just looking over, and we zoom in here. So we're gonna go right before that. We're gonna mark an out point there. We're gonna back up about 5 seconds. We're gonna add this clip in here. So we know that this clip is good, but the leftover footage has the weird zoom in, and we don't want the weird zoom in. Now we'll go to another clip here. We're doing some kind of example here. We have this here. He's here. We cut from there to there, and we're going to take this 4-second clip. We're going to add this one in here, splice it in here. Now we have this transition here, like so. And again, we're going to do a dissolve here. We're going to choose the dissolve. And we're going to say, let's do a dissolve. Let's do a 48 frame dissolve so we can really appreciate this. And we're going to do this centered on cut. We have plenty of leftover footage before and after, so we can definitely do this centered on cut. We have more footage before this, and we have more footage after grown-up table. And so we can say add. And guess what? When we do this, we get the... Getcha? See the weird zoom in that just showed up there? It's barely there, but... Getcha? It's right there, and I don't like that. I don't want to do that. So in this example, what do? Well, I say, how do I fix this? You know, I can make this shorter maybe, but I like the length, but I want this. In this case, I want to use not the footage after A, because the footage after A, the handle after A, is giving me problems. It's definitely going to be a downside for me. So in this example, I want to choose ending at cut. So it completes a transition and uses none of A's handle when I add this in, and it transitions like this. Now I can run into another problem, and a bigger problem that can occur is if, for example, let me just grab this clip here, and let's just say, we'll go to the beginning, mark an in point, mark an out point, and just remove this clip. If I grab a clip like this, and I said, let's grab this clip here, and we'll take this clip from here, or maybe from here, in point to the very end of this clip and right to there. And we're going to take this and we're going to add this in here. And then I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to take this clip from maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3 frames in. And then we're going to play for a little bit, mark an out point, and we're going to add these two clips together. And now I'm going to do transition here. And I'm going to do transition, quick transitions. And it's going to tell me, guess what? I have 3 frames. I can do the transition. I only have 3 frames. Well, why don't I only have 3 frames? I can do the transition. Well, what if I want to make this longer? What if I want to change this from 3 frames to 30 frames? Can't. Won't let me do it. And why won't let me do it? Because those 30 frames don't exist. I don't have any leftover footage. You know, if I'm on a shoot, sometimes I'll tell the camera operator, hey, hit record. You know, if you're gonna do a pan across the skyline of New York City or something, you know, hit record, count to 5 in your head, and then do the pan. That way I have some leftover footage. I always want some extra slack before and after. I always want to, you know, be able to grab a clip and mark into a clip here, just so I have that leftover handle before or after. I have that leftover footage in order to do those transitions. Because if I take this clip from the very beginning, you know, if I hit record and just start panning, or hit record and ask my first question, you know, I don't have any extra slack there to overlap to do my transitions. So I don't like to grab an in point at the very beginning. I don't like to grab an in out point at the very end. I never like to do that because trouble can ensue. It can always be a problem that can occur. So in this case, I don't have the handle. The only thing I could do is I could go here and I could trim in, and I could grab this clip and I could say, let's grab this and trim this back, and grab this and trim this back. And if I trim off enough frames here, I just trimmed off 18 and 13 frames. Now when I do my transition here, it's going to say, hey, I probably have more. Let's see, 18 and 16, that'd be, I have what, 34? Yeah, right, 34. I can grab 34 frames. And that's the most amount of handle I could grab in, would be 34 frames. So I could change this to 34. If I did centered on cut. If I do ending a cut, I can grab in 32. Oh, I had 32 because I only have 16. So I only have that much space that I could grab. But I could do that. I could grab in that amount of frames there, like so, centered on cut, because I have the 16 on the one side. So I could do something. Or I could offset this. I could offset this a little bit and just have this be like this and have this be a little bit longer and stretch this out, and kind of, I could actually move it right in here and kind of readjust where it falls in terms of there. But I want to talk about another control that I have in order to control this. So let's take a look at this back. We'll go back to this other sequence, my main sequence here. We'll go back to sequences main, and I'm going to go to the main sequence here and look at this clip here of Fidel. So this Fidel here, we had the problems here. And I know somewhere over here before Fidel, he says okay, but I don't like the transition happening so far into this transition. I don't like the way that it works so far into this transition. And now you notice right now that I can't click on this transition, which is really bothering me, that I can't do anything with this transition. But I want to show you a control that I can do. There's a button here that I kind of like, that I think should always be on. I don't know why it's not on by default, but I'm going to turn it on, and it's going to be this button right here. And this button allows me to click on the transition. And so this is called transition manipulation, which is, you know, what I want to do. I want to manipulate my transition. So let's take a look at this transition here, and let's see what we can do with this. So see what some things we can do with this. So in here, we can go to transition, we can click on the transition, and it opens up this thing called a transition corner display, which some people casually refer to as the 6-pack. And the 6-pack looks at this. It says, and let's just remove this effect. We're going to do this way. We're going to go here. We're going to choose a 48 frame, and we're going to choose centered on cut. And 48 frames centered on cut is going to definitely give us the okay in here. So we're definitely going to get the okay. We're going to see the okay visually. It's going to look like this. Okay, so there's the okay. Okay, so let's get out of the okay. So let's click on this. Again, we're going to click on this because we have the transition corner display up. And if you look at this, this is showing me the beginning, the middle, and the end. So the beginning, the cut point, and the end of the outgoing clip, the A clip, and the beginning, middle, and end of the incoming clip. So it's showing me basically this point right here, this point right here, and this point right at the end here. It's showing me what's happening with these clips here, like so. So it's showing me basically what's happening when I click here in the transition, like so. Now what I can do here is I can go here and I can say, let's grab these ends now, and I can take, well, I can take this whole thing and I can move it over. I could actually grab this whole thing and just move it over a little bit to get past. And if you watch, you're going to see in this face where he says, okay. So I'm going to go right past the okay. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. He says, okay. Now, right now, the transition is kind of right past the okay. So over here was the okay and the handle. You know, think of this footage as overlapping? I don't know, underneath here. And it's holding there. So now I've moved this right there. So now I can look at this transition and say, oh, well, I noticed the okay there.
So the minority male.
Not really. Could I come back a little further? Maybe. Maybe I come back. I'll pick up some of the okay, but it's probably so unnoticeable.
So the minority male.
Yeah. And now I want to make this a little bit shorter so I can grab this edge and I can pull this a little bit shorter and make this only, you know, a 24 frame transition. So the corner display, the transition corner display allows me the visibility to look at this and see what's happening with my transition. It shows me the beginning and ending of my transition and shows me those controls there and shows me some of those abilities that I have there. And that's just another feature. And so you can really see what's going on in the transition and see how you want to work the transition.
The minority male initiative is going to.
And that's good like there. Another example of this, if I may, is at the beginning of this, what happened is since I did a fade from color at the beginning here, I'm actually going to just grab this and say, let's grab this and let's just delete this. I'm going to click on all these tracks and just say X key to extract it out. A weird thing happened when I did the fade from color at the beginning of this thing. I did a fade from color up here and I chose fade from color, and I chose centered on cut. And when I chose this, even though it was a 24 frame, 1 second transition, it added in a second. It added in a half a second, basically, of footage. And why did it do that? Well, because it had to. In order to do the transition centered on cut, it needed something before the timeline. Well, guess what? Unfortunately, I just made my sequence a half a second longer. I did this at the beginning and I did this at the end. I actually made it a half a second longer at the end as well. So that might not be the way that I want to do this. That might be a problem. A second of time can really make a difference here. So in this case, what I may want to do is I may want to go to the beginning here and think to myself, okay, I want to do a fade from color. Yes, I want to do a fade from color. I want to add in this fade from color here, and I want to say add this fade from color, but I want to have this starting at the beginning of this clip. So the starting at the beginning of this clip would be to start at the cut point. That way it doesn't use any extra blank space beforehand to make this transition, and it opens up like that. In this example, right here at the end of this, I might want to say, hey, I want this thing, this whole sequence needs to be exactly 1 minute and 1 second, 11 frames long for whatever reason. And I say here, let's do a fade to color, and let's make this ending at cut. So it ends with the cut. It doesn't add an extra half a second over of footage, and it adds, boom, like there. That's the way I want to do this.
Yeah, NJC student.
Now, if I don't want the audio transition, I could just turn the video off, deselect the video, and then go to the remove effect and just say, boom, there. Or I could have actually gone here and said, let's grab these and delete them there like so. I would have to turn the video off and then delete. So if I do have the transition manipulation up, open, I can click on these and delete them that way. That may be another way to do it. But I can also use the remove effect button. The remove effect button is a little bit older, but it exists. It is there like so. Now, let's talk about this as an idea. Furthermore, to go into more details, let's talk about the idea of this dip to color. And this dip to color is what's called an effect called dip to color. Well, why is it called dip to color, not dip to black? Why is it
High school in Central Jersey.
And when there's an
why is it fade from color, not fade to black? I mean, it's fading to black. Well, the reason for that is, guess what? You can make it whatever color you want to. So we can go here and we can say, okay, rather than a dip to color, let's do, or rather than a dip to black, let's do a dip to a different color. Let's say, for example, here, let's park in this effect, and let's go to this button right here, what's called effect mode. And so we can go to effect mode, and we'll open up a control called the effect editor. We can also get there by going to Windows, Workspaces, and going to the effect workspace, which will do virtually the same thing as effect mode. But we're going to click on this mode, effect mode. It's going to change some of the buttons on the composer window. So some of these buttons here will change, and it's going to allow us the controls to bring up this thing called the dip to color effect. And we're going to open this up here, and I'm actually going to drag this and plant this right here, right there. And I'm actually going to go to one screen again. I like the single monitor because I don't really need to see the source video. And so now we're here, we're parked in this. And this is the dip to color effect. And the dip to color effect says dip to color here. And in dip to color, it says some controls. There's a control here called foreground. And there's a control here of a background color. Now, with the background color, things we could do hypothetically, is if we're here in background color and we're looking at this thing in background color. Sorry, don't click on the time code track, because if you click time code track, it gets you out of effect mode. The background color we can change to a different color. So let's say, for example, we grow in this, and we have this little box here. Now, this box allows us to control to grab a color. We'll talk about this box, and we'll talk about using the eyedropper to grab stuff later on. But for now, just for now, what I want to do here is I want to double click. And if I double click, it opens up a actual select a color dialog box that I have here, where I can select the color, and I'm going to choose a dip to white. I'm going to choose a dip to white. I'm going to say OK. And now it's going to dip to white.
High school in Central Jersey.
And when there's an option.
And there's a simple dip to white that I can do. A simple effect like the dip to white.
High school in Central Jersey.
And when there's an opportunity
Amazing.
to participate.
Looks great.
High school in Central Jersey.
If I want to have this, I could go in here and I could go into effect mode, and I could again double click inside of here and choose a dip to pink. Yeah, dip to pink. Cool. And now it's going to dip to pink. Why? I have no idea.
Central Jersey.
And when there's an opportunity.
Looks fantastic. We're going to choose effect mode again. We're going to go in here and choose dip to yellow. I don't know. We're doing a children's show, and we want this to be kind of a weird orangey shade of yellow. We'll make this like a Nickelodeon orangey yellow, something like that. Yeah, there we go. There's a kid's show kind of
High
thing.
school in Central Jersey.
And when there's an opportunity.
Amazing. So we could do a dip to that color. Now, if we go into the effect mode, a couple things we have. So we have some controls here to control this here. We have this control called foreground, and we have this background color. So some of these transitions will have some simpler things. So if we park on this effect and we see dissolve, it just offers a foreground control. If we have a fade from black, we could fade up from white. So we could park on this and go to effect controls, and we see fade from color. You could change to fade up from pink if you wanted to. So it would start in pink. It would actually cut into pink and then come into some other color there. A couple things we can do here. So as an idea, just really quick, as we can do, is I'm going to go here to the bins, and I'm going to make a new bin. So we're going to go right click, new bin, Command N, new bin, and I'm going to call this Chad's Awesome Effects. And I'm going to have this bin here called Chad's Awesome Effects. And now I'm going to go back into effect mode here. And I'm going to go up here. You'll see the word dip to color. And next to dip to color, you'll see an icon, a little pinky purple icon here. And here, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to drag this into here. And we're going to relabel this and call this dip to yellow. Dip to yellow. And now this effect I can use wherever I want to. So if there's some other place between Wayne and Aaron here where I want to dip to yellow again, I can grab this and just drag this on top of here, and boom, it will do the same effect, dipping this to yellow.
We're tabling now.
What I'm saying here is if you make an effect that you like, that you think is great, cool. You can do all kinds of interesting things with it, and you can make kind of cool
We're tabling
effects for your own thing, and you can have all the effects you personally want. So let's do another example of this. Let's go here, and I'm going to grab this effect here, right here, and we're going to remove this effect. So we're going to click on this. We can click on it. Let's make sure our effect mode is on. Come on, effect manipulation. Weird. Let's go back to Windows workspaces, edit and restore to current default. Cool. And we're going to say restore. And turn effect mode on. Feeling a little tricky there. And we're going to turn this off, and we're going to do this again. So we're going to say, okay, let's go here and let's go to this quick transition, and we're going to go to dip to black. And so we're going to go here, and we're going to say dip to color, and it's going to dip to color, and we're going to add this in here. Great. We're going to actually center this and make this a little bit longer. We're going to go to here to dip to color. I'm going to redo this. We're going to do dip to color. Let's make sure we're centered on cut. Great. We're going to make this 48 frames, and we don't want to dip the audio. We're okay to not dip the audio in here. We're just going to dip and add in, and boom, we have this dip to black. So by default again.
And
Oh, I did dissolve. Sorry. All right, let's park. Let's put a new effect on here. We can just do a new effect. dip to color. Thank you, dip to color. So really quickly, as an idea, and I don't like to talk about it that much because I'm dumb. There's these two other effects in here called a film dissolve and a film fade. There's an argument that in old school film, when they used actual, celluloid, not digital, actual pieces of film strip, what they had to do in order to dissolve was to use an optical printer. It was this big, massive device that did transitions by blending two pieces of film together, actually basically reproducing the film using the negatives of the film. And it was done through a thing called an optical printer. This film dissolve and film fade is supposed to replicate that difference between a digital based dissolve, which is just basically working with pixels, and a film dissolve, which works basically with light, and it looks more filmy. Here's the truth. Here's why I'm dumb. I can't tell the difference. Every time I do the film dissolve or the dissolve, it looks exactly the same. I can't tell the difference. I've never seen it before. I don't know. I feel like it's a magic eye thing that only certain people can see. I've never noticed a difference, so I don't like to talk about it. Anyway, that was a side note. Dip to color, we're gonna choose dip to color and choose dip to color, and we're gonna add this in here. I'm just gonna replace this. Again, I did the audio again. Man, I keep losing this and doing this wrong. Let's do this without the audio. Dip to color, add this in here, boom. Actually, we'll just remove the audio ones. Turn the video off, and then delete that, cool. All right, so now we have the dip to color, fine. We have the dip to color, which is dip to black.
High school in Central Jersey.
and when there's an opportunity.
So we're gonna go here and we're gonna choose this. We're gonna click on this and we're gonna choose, let's go into these controls here. Again, we'll grab this, we'll put this kind of in the center here. Excuse me, we'll make this a little bit shorter. Make this a little bit smaller, and we'll just remove the show single monitor because I don't need the second monitor. Okay, so now we're doing transition here. Okay, so when we do the transition, this is the way the transition looks. We're going to change the color. We're going to double click. Single click does a weird thing. It brings up the eyedropper, which we'll talk about later, which I don't really love. But we're going to dip to white. And now we're going to say dip to white, and I'm going to make this dip to white, and it's going to do a dip to white. We're going to change this to 3 seconds long. We're going to make this a little bit longer. I'm going to go down here to this button down here, and it says 2 seconds. We're going to change this to 300, which is going to be 3 seconds. And we're going to make this longer, 3 seconds. Okay. You'll notice that my timeline changes. Some of my buttons change. I have some new buttons down here, but I particularly have this little pink button right here called the Add Keyframe button. And the Add Keyframe button shows me when you do a transition effect, it adds 2 keyframes from the get-go. So the first keyframe it adds is a keyframe right here. And you'll see this first keyframe there. Every transition effect you add comes with 2 keyframes automatically. So over here, you have this first keyframe here. And this first keyframe says, when we click on this keyframe, it says the foreground level is at 0. So it gives me the foreground level over here at 0. And it shows me basically that I have a foreground of 0. If I go to the last keyframe, it shows me that the foreground level is at 100. So what is that telling you? Well, the foreground control, as far as I'm concerned, the foreground control, I always think of when I'm talking about transitions is a transition completion control. It's showing me the amount of transition completion. So the transition goes from 0 up to 100, which means it goes from this clip to this clip over that transition. And what does it do? It transitions, it goes down from one up to the other one, and it completes the transition in that way. Fair enough. So what we're going to do here is we're going to park here. And what I want to do is I want this to dip to white. And I want this to dip to white, which is what it's doing right now. It's dipping to white.
High school in Central Jersey.
But I want it to kind of hold onto white for a second. So let's go here into the effect mode here, and let's take a look. I'm going to go here. And so if this is 0, 0 is all this clip, and 100 is all Wayne, 50 is all white. So this is 3 seconds. What we're going to do is we're going to forward here. We're going to go a little bit forward. And I'm going to go exactly to 1 second. And I'm going to add a keyframe. I can do this by hitting the Add Keyframe button. I can also do this by adding the quotations key or the apostrophe key on the keyboard and add a keyframe there. And it adds a keyframe there. And it tells me that this keyframe is 33% complete. And of course it is, because it's 1 second into a 3 second transition. So now we have this 3 seconds. I'm going to change this 33. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to drag this to 50. Now, I'm not really great at dragging. I sometimes miss. So I'm going to just click on it and type in the number 50. And cool, it's at 50. So now it goes from 0 to 50. Now I'm going to go to 2 seconds over here. Click over here, basically to about 2 seconds. I can see up here at 2 seconds. Over here it says 2 seconds up there. Great. And now it says at 2 seconds here, I'm going to add another keyframe. And right now the keyframe says 75 because it was at 50 and then 50. This is 2 seconds left, so this would be 50 to 75 to 100. I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to make this one 50 as well. I can click on this and I can type 50. Or if I wanted to, I could click on this one, hit Command C. I'm on a Mac, so I can hit Command C for copy. You know, good old edit copy, and then click on this one over here and hit, you know it, Command V paste. Make sure you click on the keyframe, Command V paste, and I'm going to copy 50 to 50, and it's going to be 50. So now it's going to go from 0 to 50 to 50 to 100. So now it's going to hold there in white. So it's going to dip down, hold for a second,
School in Central Jersey.
And when there's an opportunity.
and then fade up. So it has a 1 second kind of hold in white.
School in Central Jersey.
And when there's an opportunity.
And we're going to take this effect. I'm going to take this effect. I'm going to grab this icon and drag it over, and we'll call this one the death dip. Did you ever watch like a weird after-school special or like a medical drama or something, and all of a sudden, like, you know, the screen goes to white, and then it holds in white for a couple seconds? Like, oh, there's a scene of kids who are underage who stole a car, who are driving down and drinking in the car, and all of a sudden the screen goes to white, and then it holds there in white for a couple seconds, then all of a sudden it fades back up, and where are they? Oh, they're at a cemetery, and everyone's crying. Yep, you know what happened. It's the death dip. The death dip, it's a universal thing. You've seen it before. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you can do this transition of this death dip, if you will. And so this is an idea. And now we have this death dip anytime we want to. So anytime any kids do something crazy, jump off a building or something, we can, you know, transition into this thing, and then we never have to show the kids being hurt. We just show this, and the next, you know, there's a crying family. Anyway, so we can do these effects, we can save these effects, and we can animate these effects, and we can do different things with these effects. Let's take this a step further. Let's go a little bit crazy. We're going to go here, and I'm going to get rid of this transition in here. We're going to click on this one. Again, I'll turn on my control here. I don't know why that keeps giving me problems. It's really weird. We're going to go here, and we're just going to remove effect here. We're going to remove this effect, and we're going to start over. I want to show you that other effects and other transitions exist. So there are other transitions that exist inside of Avid, and they are over here in the control on the side called the effect palette. If you open the effect palette, you'll see a list of category of things called filters, and you'll also see a list of category of things called transitions. And these are all the transitions that exist. Here's all of them. There's tons of them. And here's different categories of transitions. Now, a lot of these are dumb. A lot of these are silly. A lot of these are stupid. And I don't like many of these. There's a bunch of garbage in here, but I do want to show it to you just so you know that it exists. These were, you know, the things that were popular in the 70s in like Star Wars and whatever else not. So if you want to do like a Star Wars transition, you could do like, you could do an edge wipe here, and you could do a horizontal edge wipe, and you could grab this horizontal edge wipe, and this is kind of a pre-canned, you know, effect here to do a horizontal edge wipe, and we can drag this to the cut point, the transition, and park this there, and we'll do a 1 second.
Interested in.
Heat went on.
There we go, horizontal edge wipe there.
That they might be interested in.
And of course, you can go here, you can go into the effect editor, and you could see, oh, can I make this longer? Yeah, can I? 2 seconds, I can make this longer. Can I open up the border controls, and can I add a border width to this? There's a border width control. I can drag this up and add a border width. Or if I don't actually want a colored border, I could get rid of the colored border. I can make a soft border and have a little soft edge to this. And there's a transition effect that comes.
They might be interested in.
Heat went on.
There.
They might be interested in.
Heat went on.
Very Lucasfilms 1977. You know, very, you know.
Might be interested in.
Little transition effect that I can do. I can have that transition effect, do that there like so, and have that working inside of there. Let's go to Windows Workspaces. Let's go back to reset current to default, and we're going to go here and restore. Really weird. I like being able to park on this and hit delete. Cool. And so I can do that. So let's go to effect palette here, and we'll see other effects we have. And we have some craziness. I understand. If you're making some really bad video, some 1980s things, you can go to the plasma wipe techno and choose puzzle pieces. I know you don't want to do this. You have too much dignity to do this. But yeah, if you
They
wanted
might be
to,
interested in.
Heat went on.
oh, look at that horribleness there. But all these effects have controls that you can manipulate. So for example, if we wanted to, and I know we don't want to, but if we wanted to go to shape wipes, we could do shape wipes and we could say, let's bring in a circle wipe. So let's take a look at circle wipe, and we're going to grab the circle wipe and we're going to say, okay, so what does the circle wipe do? The circle wipe opens up a circle.
Might be interested in.
Heat went on.
There we go. Simple circle wipe there.
Might be interested in.
Heat went on.
I know you're getting tired of hearing these people saying, Keith went on.
Interested in.
Heat went on.
Cool. So let's look at this effect and let's see what controls we have. So this effect offers more controls than, say, the simple dip to color. You have a lot of controls here. So let's look at some of the controls here. So again, it has a foreground level. And what does the foreground level do? Well, in this case, it doesn't dissolve. In this case, we're going to make this a little bit longer. We'll make this 2 seconds long. Maybe make this 3 seconds long. So what it says here is the first keyframe, it says, hey, at the first keyframe, it's no circle. And then over time, it's at 0. So the foreground level is at 0. And then over time, it opens up and then opens up till it gets to this last keyframe. And this last keyframe says it's 100, which means it opens up 2701 here, this clip here over Fidel here, like so. Well, let's click on this first keyframe and let's take this first keyframe and we're going to call this, the foreground level is going to be at 25%. So now, as soon as we cut to it, as soon as we go to it, it's going to pop open. It's going to be there already and then transition up. But let's take a look further and let's see what else we got. Let's go to, yeah, okay. So let's go here and let's go towards the end of this. And at the end of this, we're going to add a keyframe, hit the quotations key, apostrophe, add a keyframe, and we're going to make this 25 as well. So now what it's going to do is it's going to be 25 the whole time. So now it's going to be 25 here. Play at 25. Here we go. And then it's going to open up and get bigger. So it's going to just hold there at 25 and then there. So this is kind of like a hold there like so. Now we're going to go back to this first keyframe here. And at this first keyframe, we're going to say, let's take this first keyframe. We added the keyframe here, and let's say position, horizontal position, H position. We're going to drag this off screen. So it's going to drag off screen, kind of this way, over to here. And it's going to be off screen, about -657. It's a good number. So what's going to do? Over time, it's going to transition and come across.
Heat went on.
And let's move this. Let's move this a little bit quicker. Let's move this from here. And we're going to add a keyframe. And we're going to say at this keyframe right here, we're going to move the horizontal position over here, and it's going to go up. And we're actually going to click and grab this. We're going to just click and grab this and pull this up to his face here. So it's going to move this way. It's going to kind of move from over here to there. It's going to go.
Be interested in.
Now it's dragging down a little bit. So we want this to stay up where it is. So right here, we can click on this keyframe, copy this, go to this keyframe, Command V, paste. So now it holds, but he moves a little bit. So let's move back to where he is, so it kind of stays with him here. So now it's kind of just following, we're kind of tracking along with him.
Be interested in.
Heat went on.
And then open up like there. But by the time it gets back to the end here, at the very last keyframe, we want to make sure we do here. We want to make sure that this last keyframe here, we want to make sure that this is reset back to 0. So we're going to set 0. And this one at 0, so it's in the center. So it opens up center-wise and comes back. So it's going to come and open up like this. Boom. So now we have this kind of following him here.
Be interested in.
Heat went on.
Now we're going to say, I don't know, we're going to say, for example, right here, we're going to do a quick add a keyframe, go maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 frames ahead, add another keyframe, and we're going to take the border and we're going to soften the border so it gets a little blurry. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, whoops, sorry. Look down here again, go 1, 2, 3, 4 again, add another keyframe and unblurriness this. So now it's going to right here, it's going to follow along with them. Get blurry, unblur, and then open up. And so this is
Be interested in.
Heat went on.
little blurriness there. If you want to move these
Be
keyframes
interested in.
Heat went on.
to make them there, it won't let you drag the keyframes automatically. For some reason, Avid doesn't want you to drag keyframes horizontally, but if ever Avid doesn't let you do something, hold in the Alt key, the Option key, and you can drag these keyframes and spread this out a little bit more. So this is going to be a little bit more blurry over time. So it's going to be just, we're going to drag this here, Option, and drag them there. For some reason, by default, it won't let you drag them horizontally, but you can do that.
Heat went on.
So now it's doing that transition there. So we've done this 3-second transition.
Be interested in.
It comes on screen, it opens up. We're going to take this, go back to our bins here, and call this James Bond wipe. Let's call this James Bond. And so this will be the transition called James Bond that will open up this kind of, you know, dun 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 trademark. But yeah, we can do this kind of James Bondy looking thing there. Do you want to do this? No. Am I showing you this just so you can come up with your own ideas of what you want to do? Yes, but this is how transition effects work, and this is how transition effects within the effect editor work to do whatever kind of effects you want to do. Those things exist. Explore them, play with them, have some fun with them.
Careers I think might be interested in.
Heat went on.
I know you think they're silly. I understand that. I think they're silly too. But guess what? They're real time, which is lovely. Look, no freezing up, no hesitating, no holding,
Be interested in.
no problems. And you know, someone's going to ask you to do them. At some point, someone's going to say, hey, we want this video. It's going to be amazing. It's going to go viral. Blah, blah. You got to put in these transitions because it's going to be really cool and really funny.
About careers I think might be interested in.
Heat went on.
Everything old becomes new again. Are there other effects here that are ridiculous? Yes, there are other effects here that are ridiculous. You know, the puzzle pieces is kind of ridiculous, but you can make all these kind of transition effects. You know, you don't need to use them. There is some other effects that you can grab and some other things you can do to, you know, help you out and make you better. You can download other effects as well. So I have a series that comes from Red Giant called the Universe Plugins, and there are Universe Transitions. So if you want to go to the Universe Transitions, you can say I don't know, like there's some fun stuff here. The glitch one, the glitch transition. You know, so you'll see this some places where they have the glitch transition. We can do a glitch transition here. And let's park somewhere in here. Let's park the glitch transition and do glitch transition. And it does this kind of like distorted video.
To different careers, professionals that work within those careers. And
Now, one of the tricky things is sometimes third-party stuff, even though it says it's real time,
different careers, professionals that
third-party stuff sometimes doesn't play real time the first time through.
Different careers, professionals.
That's a cool effect. You know, sometimes that works for something there. You could try that effect. Again, we can get rid of that. And let's take a look at that, see what it offers there. So we can go to glitch transition, and you probably see some crazy controls that exist here. You're going to park right in the center here. And we'll open up the effect editor and take a look and see, oh man. So there's presets, there's transition styles, there's etc. There's a choose preset dialog box that will open up a thing, open up another window that you can look at different types of glitches. This comes from Red Giant, so this has the Red Giant controls. This is wide and flat, or displacement. Let's try displacement. Apply preset. It applies those changes like there, and it looks like this. And it's
careers,
a little different.
Professionals that work within those careers.
Yeah, it's a glitch transition.
Different careers, professionals.
Yeah, again, sometimes the third-party stuff, again, this isn't made by Avid, so, you know, whoever made it, Red Giant, you know, maybe got it really close to whatever it is. Channel blur, camera shake. What else we got in here? Retrograde, Rubik's Cube, shape wipes, Spectralicious. Spectralicious sounds fun. Let's try that. Spectralicious. Let's see what it does. Oh, just a little
geared toward exposing
kind of a weird kind of
students to
blur. There's probably some presets inside of here. If we go into effect mode, we can look in here, choose a Spectralicious preset. I don't know. Let's try that. Spectralicious 3. Yeah, that's a weird. There's some weird things here.
Geared toward exposing minority male students to different careers.
Kind of a weird looking, kind of blurred out.
Toward exposing my.
That's interesting. That's kind of fun. It's there. So different kinds of, you know, different transitions, things we can do. You know, I've used some of these before. Sometimes you're just doing something for like a sizzle reel or some kind of a thing. And there's some interesting effects you could use. You know, different things. I'm trying to think of what I used before. Some no light stuff maybe. Color stripes are really simple, but it's one of those things that's like, oh, you've seen this before, where it does like, you know, home improvement shows will do
It's
like
really
this,
geared toward exposing.
you know, some of those things. And they have a whole bunch of controls. We can change all the colors and how it moves. And again, choose a preset, and they have different presets of, oh man, look at that. Here's some different colors, different shades. Let's choose this split complementary. Moving from the left. Oh, that's kind of fun. Number of layers, we can add more layers. So we can add like up to, I think, 7 layers here. It's like a burrito.
Conference that is really geared toward exposing my.
What was the transition there?
Geared toward exposing my.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So there's all kinds of transitions you can get. You can get other stuff from different companies and different organizations and stuff. And there's some stuff like there. Anyway, you have some of those things available. Anyway, that's going to be that for this. We're going to talk more about segment effects and some more about filters and some other effects. We'll talk about effects layering and nesting and all kinds of other stuff as we go on, but that's just an introductory into some of the basic transitions. Again, dissolve is always your friend. You know, dissolve is always you know, before you go into anything crazy, add a dissolve first if you need it. Otherwise, the cut. Remember, the cut is, there's nothing wrong with the cut. You know, the cut makes sense. It does. You know, don't just put an effect there because you think it looks cool. Put an effect because you're trying to say something, because you're trying
It's
to
really geared toward exposing.
make a point, some kind of a transition effect that shows a change in time and place. Otherwise, the cut's universal. The cut is normal. It's simple. It's understandable. All right. Thank you very much.